The House That Counts Breaths. Part 1. The Girl Who Heard the House Breathe. On winter nights in Beijing, when the air hardens and the city's lights shiver behind frost, the old villa at number 81 Chaonei is said to inhale. Lin Qiao heard it first on a Tuesday, which felt wrong. It should have been a Friday or a funeral. She was a freelance storyteller for a late-night podcast, a collector of things that keep people awake, and she had come to the Iron Gate with a voice recorder in one pocket and a peppermint in the other. The gate, once lacquered red, had long ago surrendered to rust. Its curls and spear tips were the color of dried blood. Behind it, the villa, French-baroque bones covered in grime, eyelids of broken shutters black with mold. Even at noon, the house held shade in its mouth. People called it the most haunted house in Beijing as casually as they ordered noodles. Every taxi driver had a cousin who'd run past it at midnight and seen a white sleeve in a window. Childhood dares, wedding party detours, summer school rumors. Number 81 had fed on them all. The story Lin wanted was older, Republican era, a minister named Duan Shicheng who bought the place for his second wife, a concubine named Han Yu, then abandoned her to scandal. One night, they said, she looped a silk sash over a ceiling beam and stepped off the chair without a sound. Since then, anyone who dared sleep in the house woke with the taste of dust and rope. Qiao pressed her palm to the frozen iron. The air on the other side seemed to pulse, a lung drawn in slow, resigned drags. "It's just the wind," said Zhang Wei, her photographer friend, who had said the exact same thing at a graveyard, a tunnel, and a hotel with the fire doors chained shut. He adjusted his scarf, raised his camera, and took a few shots through the bars. Snip of shutter. No smell of air. "Tell me again why we're doing this," he added. "Because people listen when they're afraid," Qiao said. "Because the city forgets its ghosts unless we let them speak." She had brought a third companion, though she didn't call him that yet. Professor Mei Shui, a thin man with librarian shoulders and eyes like the winter sky, clear and unslept. A microhistorian of Republican Beijing, he'd spent decades rummaging through the city's attics for love letters, receipts, petitions, and bills of sale. He could point to a window frame and tell you the year the carpenter changed chisels. He could whisper a date and make the dust stand up. Han Yu wasn't from Beijing, he said now, tugging on a glove. Born in Wuxi, came north at 18. The house was never legally hers. "You brought the deed?" Qiao asked. "I brought something better." Professor Mei tapped his satchel. Her ledger. The concubine kept one. "Of what?" Zhang asked. "Of everyone who owed her an apology." Qiao laughed, the sound too loud in the brittle air. Beyond the gate, a curtain lifted in a top-floor window, as if someone exhaled. Then the three of them stepped back as the gate's lock gave, not with a clatter, but with a small, tired click, like a throat deciding to confess. The house had been waiting. That was what Qiao thought later, long after the peppermint melted and the battery bar on her recorder sank like a moon. The house had been counting the steps between their hearts and its door. And once they crossed the threshold, the counting would not stop. Part 2. Ledger of the Concubine. The foyer smelled of wet paper and old lilies. A chandelier hung crooked, its crystal teardrops spotted with soot, like a cluster of eyes that had cried and then decided to watch instead. A staircase of black walnut curved up into gray. Qiao flicked on her recorder and spoke softly, as she always did when coaxing a place to speak. "January 17th, she said. Temperature, knifed. We're inside the villa at Chaonei. If you know, you know. We came because a story refuses to stay dead." Zhang Wei clicked a light wand to life, and the beam revealed swaths of wallpaper like bruised silk. In one panel, a pastoral scene of foreign hills lay under a film of indecision, the paint unsure whether to stay or flee. Snow had crawled under the front door, making a small, crystalline dune on the entry tile. Their footprints were the only ones. Professor Mei set his satchel on a credenza whose marble top had split along a vein. From it, he withdrew a wrapped bundle and a pair of cotton gloves. The bundle was a ledger, cheap paper, cracked spine, pages mottled cream to the color of tea with too little milk. On the first page, in a slanting, careful hand, dongball accounts. But beneath, in smaller, angrier characters, eyelids. She wrote names, May said, turning the page with 2 fingers. Not of money, of moments. Look, the columns were strange. Date, hour, weather, then a blank space where one might expect sums, but instead, left me alone for 3 days because of a banquet. Promised to visit the garden, broke it for cards. Forgot my birthday. Later, Intrees hardened, raised his voice, called me by the other wife's name. Did not read the poem I copied by hand. Then, doctor said it is a girl. He did not return that night. And finally, blank lines. A page with a crease near the top, as if bent around a rope. It survived because the maid stole it, May said. Donated to a church library in the 1960s when they cleared houses. No one knew what it meant. The pastor thought it was a prayer journal. Is that how the nun rumor started? Zhang asked. The nun, May said, is a later costume people put on grief when they cannot look it in the face. Qiao traced a finger above the ink, careful not to touch. She imagined the concubine bent over the book by a lamp, jaw clenched, listing the small violences that make the larger one possible. She imagined the ledger full, and then being forced to keep writing anyway, beyond the event that should have ended all accounting. People say her ghost pulls a chair across the floor at night, Zhang said. Leaves water in a glass. She counted, Professor May said. I think she still counts. Counts what? Qiao asked. Breaths, he said. He looked up at the chandelier. The house seemed to be waiting for them to say the wrong thing. Let's split up, Qiao said. I want the back rooms. Zhang, the stairs. Professor, the study. We'll meet in the kitchen when the light fails. Try doors before forcing them. Be respectful. Say hello. They each said hello, because this was Beijing, and because the word felt like a small red thread to hold. Part 3. Rooms that speak in drafts. The back rooms were long with winter. Qiao moved through them like a blunt needle, stitching a path out of breath. Her mind had trained itself to collect atmospheres. The smell of yellowing pages that used to be white, the way a room cools at the edges first, the quiet far away like a bowl. She whispered descriptions for her listeners, for herself, for whatever in the house pulled on the rope of her voice. The wallpaper here, she said, has lemons on it. They look like soft coins under cloud. There's a piano with a missing key that's not the white one, but the space where one would be. The floor creaks like it's swallowing the past in small bites. In the music room, a score lay on the stand, blank as if the paper had forgotten how to be a promise. A glass had indeed been left on a side table, a ring of lime at the bottom where water had once receded. Qiao told herself the caretaker had been careless, though no one had cared for this house in decades. Between the music room and the parlor was a door with a thread of red cloth tied through the keyhole. It was not old. It was clean, like a warning placed last week. The knot was simple, a loop of apology. Qiao paused. That night, Qiao recorded the episode in one take. She did not begin with thunder. She began with an apology. I thought I was going to sell you a ghost, but what I have is a woman who kept a ledger of oxygen. Then she told Han Yu's small, relentless story. No violins, no silent screams. When she reached the room with the beam, she did not describe the mark. She described the chair. When she reached the banquet, she did not describe the minister's smile. She described the hand that did not lift the glass a second time because it did not know how to hold guilt. She ended like this. If you pass number 81 Chaonei, do not go inside. Do not throw stones or shout for the ghost. Stand at the gate. The iron is warm from the city's fumes. And count your breaths until you reach the number of your age. Then add 1. Give that extra to her. When she posted it, she switched her phone to airplane mode and sat on her bed with the lights off. In the dark, she heard it. Not the house, but the city breathing. Maybe the same rhythm. Maybe all breath is a single animal passing through us in different skins. The episode went loud. It ran like bare feet at midnight. Taxi drivers shook their heads and tapped the steering wheel along to the drumming of listeners. Aunties at bus stops swapped the concubine's name as if it were a herb. Teenagers dared each other to count. Once, twice, stopping at the gate with their cheeks red, hands shaking as if they were cold. Someone painted a small red thread on the iron. Someone hung a paper plum blossom in the hole where a shutter had been. A week later, Qiao woke before dawn and found her window open a hand-width. She did not remember opening it. On the sill lay a scrap of old paper, foxed and soft, as if it had been carried in a coat lining since the earwax was still used for stamps. On it was one character, written in a hand that had learned to flow with restraint, gug, enough. She did not know if the message meant what she hoped, that the counting had arrived at its number, that a ledger could be closed without becoming a weapon. She only knew that when she went to speak into her recorder that evening, her voice held a steadiness she had convinced herself belonged to other people. Spring pulled slowly at Beijing, as if the city were a knot unwilling to loosen because the knot was how it knew itself. Number 81 Chaonei continued to collect footsteps on the sidewalk, prayers in pockets, size tied in the red threads students discreetly looped onto the gate. One night in April, after rain, a group of office workers in rumpled suits stood outside and put their palms to the bars. They did not go in. They counted together, softly, like a half-remembered song. San. Their breaths fogged the iron, and for a moment the rust blushed fresh. Inside, the chandelier under its dust threw back one stubborn shard of light. On a humid evening in June, the city's rumor machine tried to eat the story. A blogger posted a grainy clip claiming the ghost had pulled someone's hair. A man with perfect teeth announced on a live stream that he had spent the night inside and come out with a scratch he insisted was ancient Mandarin for shed blood. The house grew louder with wrong words. Qiao, at her desk, wrote nothing. She remembered the ledger's last line. She did not want to add to it. Then Professor May died. It was not dramatic. He fell asleep on a gray morning with a ledger on his nightstand and a mug of tea cold beside it. At the funeral, Qiao met his daughter, alive, in her 30s, a woman named Ru whose fever had left her deaf but wholly present. Qiao understood then, grief is a kind of mishearing. We all get the story wrong and live anyway. Weeks later, Qiao returned to the house alone. The city was a hot, dim river. Cicadas drilled at the air until it cracked. At the gate, she placed her palm where she had placed it that first day and felt the house count. It had not forgotten. She took a folded scrap from her pocket, a copy of Han Yu's last line, written in Xiao's hand, and slid it between two bars. An offering that was not food or incense or cleverness. Just ink. Hello, she said to the villa, to the air, to the ledgers we keep because speech is expensive. It's me again. The gate did not open. The house did not breathe. It had learned discretion, or perhaps it had finally chosen rest. A bicycle bell rang behind her. A boy waved as he passed. The city continued to do what cities do. Swallow and emit narratives, confuse cause for effect, be haunted by commerce more than by ghosts. Qiao turned to leave. She took 3 steps and then stopped because the air shifted the way it does when a person you love enters a room you thought was empty. She looked back. A woman stood at the top floor window. No white dress, no theatrical hair. She wore a plain jacket, as if she were going to market. She lifted her hand, not to wave, but to check the time by a watch she no longer wore. Then she did the counting gesture. 1 finger, 2, 3. Qiao, standing at the gate, raised her own hand and did the same. 1, her first breath. 2, the breath someone took for her. 3, the one she was lending back. The woman nodded once. Not grateful, not tragic, acknowledging a settled account. Then she turned and walked into the dark behind her like a person turning the page before the ink has fully dried. Some nights, if you walk by number 81 and the weather is about to change, you can hear the house take a breath it doesn't need. It is not a ghost, not an omen. It is the smallest sound of a ledger closing. And if you are quiet enough, you'll hear the page numbers, your age and one more, whisper themselves shut.